My slips, my falls, my trials and tribulation, my heart, my balls. Somebody stop me, somebody come and get me. Little did I know that the Lord was riding with me. The dark, the light, the heart, the fight, the wrong, the right, it's gone.
What's going on out there, YouTube family? We are back. It's Sam and Lucas. We're here again. You didn't think it was going to happen, but I got them back on for another review.
Look. At this point, I've given up free will. It is what it is. I'm assuming I'm just going to have to sit through the rest of these Lovecraft episodes. And I just want y'all to know the things I sacrifice to give y'all a review. You just don't understand how much I do not want to watch this show. I hate this show. I absolutely hate this show. And we've been gone for 8 weeks from Lovecraft. 8 weeks.
Yeah.
For us, it's been around 8 weeks since we've had to see a Lovecraft episode. And see, episode 6 changed nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm not going to say what I said to Sam before we came on air or what I called this episode, because that could be perceived as hate speech in a way. I'm not going to say it, but let's just say, yeah. Let's get to the episode. Episode 6.
Yeah, so we're going and breaking down episode 6. Now, just to give you guys a heads up and a disclaimer, this is a spoiler-filled review. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, go and check out my non-spoiler review. I do break down a lot of it, but I keep pretty much the big mystery behind the character that's the main forefront of this episode. But yeah, let's go ahead and break it down. So this episode, just so you guys know, had nothing to do with any of the story that we left off on. This didn't continue the progress of the story past when Ruby, got the reveal that Christine and William are the same person. It didn't push past understanding, where Atticus' lineage is connected with any of this. The only correlation to the last episode is that Atticus was so freaked out that he called the number again, and the person answering said, "I told you not to go home." And we didn't really know what that necessarily meant, but in this episode, it does technically get revealed. But this episode, again, we've said it each time, they've made each episode completely different, like it's its own anthology. Like, I've never seen a show do this where instead of like each season is its own anthology, this has no connection to anything. Like, technically, this could be a whole different show, or even in the very beginning before we even get to the first episode, because this is really surrounding the character Jae-hai. Jae-hai, you first introduction of her, she's in a movie theater. She looks kind of like a geeky person that's kind of just like a loner, but striving for love. And like, she just all of a sudden just like starts to picture herself like dancing and all this kind of thing. And like, then you realize it's all this in her head. But like, there's something about the way she's looking that I was kind of like, I don't know. And we go back to this image right here. I want to make sure I bring this up because we've seen her before, and it's not just her in Atticus's memories. In the very first episode, we see her here. I'm gonna bring it up really quick. What is it? I think it's this one. Yep, this is the one. And like, you're like, what is this chick? Like, I mean, when we first saw it, we saw Jackie Robinson. We saw, what looked to be like zombies and monsters, and then we see this alien just all of a sudden coming down from a ship. We had no preconceived notions about who or what she is, but I knew that was the same exact actress named Jamie Chang. Now, Jamie Chang in this one, she is the main lead of this episode, and in every way, shape, or form. This is her story, and it plays to the narrative that basically, from the point that she left, you find out she's working at the hospital. It's like 1949, and she's trying to date around. Her mom's trying to provoke her to go and do it. Like, she's like, no, this is the only way we'll be able to have honor back for our family. I didn't really know the consequence behind it, but you knew that the dad died. You just didn't know what happened. And she goes and dates around. Nobody likes her. It's just almost like everybody just avoiding this girl. And finally, she just goes and macks on somebody, pulls them. They just start going in. Like, this is a very rated R episode. Like, there's more sex in this episode than pretty much every other episode of the season this far.
Yes.
But this is when things start to get crazy. So she's having sex with the man, and all of a sudden, like, he's kind of like all chill, and all of a sudden you see something come up out of her. And it just comes out of every part of her, like her eyes, her ears, her mouth, everything. And like, she literally sucks everything out of him. Like, to the point that he explodes and she gets all of his memories. And then you realize, oh, okay, yeah, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening at this point? But, okay, so I want to, before I even give my opinion about this, I want to get Lucas's perspective of, at this point, what did you suspect was going on?
The writers and directors of this wonderful show decided to say, screw the book completely. Like, I know I said that before, and I know it's still getting to me. I know I said they say screw the book, but this time they said, you know what? We're not even going to act like it was a book for this show that it's clearly based off of, and we're going to do this. Now, when we get to the beginning of the episode and I see nothing but Asian people, I assumed we were getting the backstory of that quick glimpse of the love image of Atticus in episode 2 that he's fighting off in the room. So I said, okay, so we're going to get backstory pertaining to that.
Yeah.
It just goes, as Sam said, it goes absolutely crazy when they are doing adult activities and all of a sudden all of these tentacles started coming out of nowhere. And you're like, wow. Like, now the monster that I'm assuming she's supposed to be, they say the monster's name, but I never ever really catch. It's Kachina. I never really say the name right of the monster that she is playing. Now, because I know some things about Lovecraft, I'm not sure if this is T'Challa's daughter or is supposed to be his sister, because this monster have remnants of both of those characters. So I'm not sure which one is supposed to be, partly because I just don't care enough to find out which one is supposed to be. And
it's okay, Lucas. It's okay. It's okay.
This show, like
it's an airhead.
I don't understand why. Why do they feel the need to constantly switch what this show is? At first, it started off as just this story by story adventure. Then by the time we get to episode 5, you changed it to a completely different show. And now we get to episode 6 and you're changing it again to a completely different show.
This is like, almost like a spinoff. Like, yes, this isn't.
Oh God, you're gonna go right back to the tune that you set in the first 3 episodes, probably in the next episode. Yep. Do you not understand what you're doing to your audience when you do this? It is a reason that the 5th episode of the show so far is the least watched episode of this show. It's because you're messing with your viewer for no apparent reason. This could have been a very interesting story if we thought Lovecraft was, again, reminiscent of American Horror Story or any of those other things, or Twilight Zone. There you go, of Twilight Zone, where every episode is something different. But because of the Atticus connection, and then we're bringing it back, as Sam said, to the very first episode when she played this alien monster, which again could be why it's either T'Challa's sister or daughter, because T'Challa plays. That's the only time we see that monster is in the first episode. So there's the correlation of just attempting to connect his life to a character, and I'm assuming change it up enough for people who know the book to not know what's going to happen. But this ain't it. This ain't it. Not at all.
So this is why I wanted to make sure me and Lucas did this spoiler review, because we're gonna have every kind of point of view that you're gonna have. Like some of you guys might have my perspective, some of you guys might have Lucas, or both of us. For me, I can agree with Lucas that this is not a Lovecraft episode. This had nothing to do with Lovecraft. It doesn't further the story outside of the extension of kind of peeling back different layers to Atticus as a character. I did like that we got a little bit more from him and his connection to like books and why he is the way he is with the Count of Monte Cristo, other than just like exposition that we got from the dad. Like you get to understand where a lot of his anger comes from. You get to understand why he's so hostile most of the time. You get to understand why he doesn't even really understand how to be in a relationship with Letty, because this was his first focal, relationship. The thing about this episode, with all that in mind, I actually enjoyed this episode because I don't have any kind of connection to the books. I don't have any kind of like, in my head, I'm like, yo, they're taking this whole story and just doing whatever with it. I just enjoyed it from the perspective of her character, going through the different melodrama of everything that was actually going on. Because from her perspective, the backstory is really this. The mom found out that not only did the dad, rape, her daughter, but it was that this has been a continuous thing, that he was in love with the daughter. And so she gone and put a hex on the daughter to go and kill him. And with all that, like, she assumed that, in doing that, this was going to be the recompense for all of it. But there was a sacrifice that technically the daughter's soul was gone. Like whatever is here now is this entity, this thing that this supposedly doesn't have any life or any kind of like understanding of love or capability of human connection. And that technically was false. Like the thing I loved about this is that she developed like actual friendship. She developed like certain like instinctual understandings of connection. And she was a totally different person, but she had the capacity of being able to love, even being an actual monster. And I actually personally dug it, man, because when I bring up the character, what is the character's name? It was, I can't remember the girl's name. I can't remember her name. I'm not even going to try. Lord knows. But her best friend that worked at the hospital that was with her, you find out that she was a communist spy. And she had been, presumably, we thought she was just kind of flirty. Like she was just kind of loose and with all these different kind of people. I thought for a second there, she had like feelings for, her. Yeah. That's what I thought, you know what I'm saying? But then you find out like, no, like she legit was going and doing stuff to try to, get things further along on the back end. And at the moment that, she started to really understand what was happening, it was already too late, because by that time, Atticus's group had found her and was like, yeah, who is the person that is the communist spy? Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah. And like the weird thing about it is like Atticus low key, bro, like he was just cold as ice. Like he straight up, if I'm not correct, like he pointed the gun at her first, right?
Yeah, because he killed the girl next to her. He killed the girl next to her, and then he pointed the gun directly at her, and then the friend stepped up and said, "I'm the spy." Yep.
And then they pulled and took her away. And like she was destroyed. Like it messed her up to the point that she was like, because she initially had said, just for background, she had told her mom, like, look, I've killed 99 people and I ain't wanted none of it. You've been putting this idea that if I kill 100 people like this, that you're gonna get your daughter back. I don't think it's gonna happen, and I don't want this life, whatever. And to be fair, it could be true. Like I was like, you gonna kill 100 people? You think that's gonna bring your daughter? Like, nah, bro. Like, I don't know what the mom was smoking, but I never thought that was gonna be a reality. But she was about to make an exception for Atticus. Yeah, she was like, oh, nah, bro. She saw him in the hospital and like he was all jacked up, leg broke, couldn't see. he getting frustrated because he couldn't see because glasses broke. And
he had this little dramatic crying moment.
Yeah. He had his Antoine Fisher moment. I would
There
like
you
to
go.
say.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But it was the thing I like about Jamie's performance is that there was never a moment that I kind of felt like she was one note. I felt like she was always fluctuating with different emotions, even though the character was supposed to be this lifeless monster. And that wasn't her. Like it never in any way, in any scene, she was never that. Sometimes her eyes were dead, but there was never a moment that she wasn't emotionally cut off. And I love that about her as a character and her performance. I thought it was actually really riveting. And she actually, in the scenes that she was with Atticus, made me, I don't know, like Atticus more. Like, I don't know whether or not I've just been disconnected from Atticus because of these stupid episodes from time to time to time.
Or could this be the first time you felt him have a legitimate connection with another character on this show? Because that's never been shown on this. I think that's my issue with this episode is that just like episode 5, which I said was the best episode so far of the series, don't feel the need to connect them to the rest of the crappy episodes with the characters. I would have much rather seen her go through her progression without Atticus at all. I think I would have enjoyed the episode more. Because they start off so strong in building what this character is, the thing she's going through with her mom when we finally get the monster reveal. Yes, I thought it was silly, but hey, let's lean more into that. And the moment Atticus comes back in, it brings you back, unfortunately, to the rest of the series. Like you're like, okay, this is Lovecraft Country. So let me piece this together with the other episodes instead of letting just this stand alone on its own. And it could have really done that with no issue at all. Because as you said, her performance is really good. It's just the overarching story that kicks back in over and over again with Lovecraft Country, and it gets worse and worse. And that was my issue.
Yeah, and I'll agree that the very last, the moment that, man, it's hard because even though I agree and I disagree. Like the moments that she was with Atticus, as much as I didn't want it to go back to Lovecraft, I loved those moments up until she went psycho on him. Like I actually really did love the moments of connection and dissection and kind of piecing together certain things. Even like the conversation she was having with her mom, like she had like one of those moments with her mom and she just spazzed out on her. She was like kind of making this little hymn, you know.
Oh, when she broke down to her why they were in the situation they were in. Like, you made this deal. You brought me here. But again, that's the powerful parts of the episode. The moment Atticus comes in, and it's not that Jonathan Majors is not good in this episode. That's not it. It's just that it brings you right back to the crappiness that is Lovecraft Country. Instead of you being able to enjoy just this episode. And I think that's the issue. Even when the episodes feel separated, you cannot enjoy a singular episode because it will bring you right back to understanding that this is just part of an overarching story, especially by the end of this episode. What happens at the end of this episode is that I was like, God darn it, like you're gonna try to suck me right back in to the rest of this show just by doing something as a simple line of "you haven't been evil enough yet," and I'm like, oh, come on, man, like we got to get more of this. Like I saw what happens to Atticus in the future, and I'm like, you know what, just follow the book. If you'd have followed the book, this show could have been really good. But no. You had to stray away from the book to attempt to prove that you were creative. This is why it doesn't work when you stray away from source material to try to prove you're creative.
Yeah, so
just go with the book. Dag nabbit, just go. I want to say something more than dag nabbit, and I'm not saying it with the words I really want to say about the way this show has just strayed away from its own source material. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we've said it. I want to say we said it after the second episode that anybody that is a book fan of this that knows the book up and down, this is not the show for you. I think that the longer things progress for you, your enjoyment is going to go down and your frustration is going to go up. For me, it's kind of like the opposite, like where it's like, I've seen some crappy sci-fi, Twilight Zone-esque series. This isn't that. But I can't understand why Lucas is upset because, the thing that Lucas is kind of alluding to me, I'm just like, oh man, that's not this show at all.
Exactly.
Because the last 10 minutes is two different moments, and Lucas already brought both of them up. When she had the memory or the dream or whatever was going on, it was a couple different moments that I was kind of like, yo, that ain't even happened yet. Who's teaching Atticus Poole? Like, who's he torturing? Like, at what point is going to happen after this that he's strung up like he's on a cross? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's things that it messed her up so bad, she started screaming and hollering. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, what does that even mean? They do that because they want you to be drawn in to the rest of the season. I get it. From a marketability standpoint, for normal consumers, I really do get it. That's the way of rounding everything back out. And then, like Lucas said, the very last thing, it was like, oh, you haven't done enough. You haven't been connected to the darkness enough. Yeah. That leads me to believe what Lucas is talking about, it may be a totally different entity. I think that if and when she kills the 100th person, that's going to bring something else into the world. And it ain't going to be her soul. Like, it's going to be something else. Because it doesn't make sense. Why would you go and kill people, but take the souls of 100 people, and that just gonna be it? It don't work like that. That's like, all right, I'm gonna put like 100 balloons in a container box. It's gonna explode, bro. Like, it's nah. That's some bull.
You see how you keep on saying it doesn't make sense? Welcome to my world, where I say this whole show doesn't make sense. This was my fear. This was my complete fear with this show when it was being made, that the people who make the show would try to be super creative with it when you didn't need to be super creative with it. This is the equivalent for me, and I'm gonna make a quick equivalency to it. This is the equivalent to me is if when the Disney remade The Lion King, they didn't have Mufasa die. Instead, they killed his mother. And then built everything off of that one moment, and you're like, this isn't the same movie. Like, what are you doing? That's how I feel about Lovecraft Country. Like, you let Mufasa live and you killed someone else just to make a different story for no apparent reason. There's just no reason for this, people. None. And granted, the actors are doing their best with the material that they are given. But at this point, you got to just question, like, are we setting things up because you wanted way more than one season of Lovecraft Country? Is that why we're straying so far away from your source material, because you wanted to build upon your own? And I've told Sam repeatedly, I've told anybody repeatedly, I understand when you have to adapt source material and make it your own. That makes perfectly good sense. Do not follow the beats of your source material while changing your source material. That is literally the dumbest thing you could ever do to a story.
So I will say this. They are using the first season as the sacrificial lamb / pilot program because they're straight. Like I said, this episode in and of itself showed me this could be a series that I could have watched before Lovecraft came out. I could have been looking at this and her story as its own, kind of like what's the joint? Spartacus, Blood and Sand. The prequel to that, where it just kind of came off with another gladiator. This could have been that, because that's the way they're building each one of these episodes. They're trying to do that, and I think that they don't want this to be a limited HBO series. I think they want this to be continued into multiple seasons, supernatural slash.
Oh, but don't worry about it. You don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. They're destroyed their audience enough. This will be. It was not supposed to be a limited series. It's going to end up being one now. You have alienated your audience just enough to make this a limited series.
So
it would have been better if this would have been one of the first 3 episodes shown.
I agree.
Give me those the character driven episodes early, and then use those to formulate the story of the connectedness of everything later on. That way I'm drawing back on things. I'm like, hey, that's what she was in. Okay, I remember that character. So now she's here. Like, that's what I want to do. Don't do all of this connected stuff and then give me solo episodes, because I know you're going back to connected episodes, and then I'm going to look at the middle of the season like I could have skipped that whole middle and not really been affected by anything.
Bruh, look, they could have done this, and this is just me spitballing. They could have had the first episode be Atticus as a young, literally a young kid, just trying to survive with his dad and his dad's craziness, but yet his intelligence and his understanding of what's going on, and Atticus just completely lost, and then him leaving to go to the war. Then the next episode starts off with this one. And then you're like, wait, okay, why did Atticus get to this point? And then we go to the very first episode, and you got now enough connective tissue to further us along to, to have connections outside of that. You know what I'm saying? Like this, because I mean, even in that first episode, if the first episode was literally just the beginnings of Atticus as a young man, you would have had Uncle George, you would have had understanding of Atticus's dad. And I think that they could have built that differently. If they're doing it the way they're doing it and they're not going off the books, then you got to build it in the best way possible.
You got to build the characters out better.
To be fair, I've heard a lot of different reviewers and a lot of different discussions. They're like saying this is the best thing since sliced bread, and they just been tuning in every night, every Sunday.
Yeah, they just room for everything black. Like those are the same ones that think Antebellum is a good movie. At that point, I can't argue with you. I can't argue with you with your perception here. I just know, and like I read a wonderful article. I don't know who was written by. It was written for The Undefeated, which is a black sports culture website, and they called Lovecraft Country and the aforementioned movie that we won't say again, they called them beautiful empty suits. And what they mean by that is they look so good, but they have nothing underneath them. And that's the issue with Lovecraft Country. The show looks like it should be amazing, but it's nothing underneath the look of it, and that's what's irritating me. Because if it was just the book, as I said, when we did episode 2, and I said, let's just throw out the book and say, forget it. But at least give me some substance behind it. You're still not doing much. I cared more about this woman's character in this chapter more than any other character in any other chapter. That should not be the case. It took you 6 episodes to make me care about Atticus. How did it take 6 episodes to care about this man? And he's your lead character.
Look, this is the same issue that we've talked about from multiple different franchises that, well, man, I ain't gonna go there, but let's just say this is a standalone episode. That's just got to go.
This is Ant-Man. This is Ant-Man to the MCU. That's what this is.
And it's completely standalone. There was enough to be able to flesh out not just the character's performance, but the understanding behind, horror cultured situation. And I connected to it. I actually really like this episode because of that. It wasn't because of my thoughts or love or like or dislike for Lovecraft that I like this episode. Like, it just, I try to avoid the Lovecraft side of it and just enjoyed it for what I was really kind of given. But then I understand where Lucas's frustration, because in Lucas's mind, like, this ain't nothing to do with the book. And where are they trying to take me? What journey are they really trying to?
No. Here's the weird part. I know exactly where this story is taking me, and that's what's making me mad. When I say don't go beat for beat of the book and then change everything and still go by the same beats, I know exactly where you're heading to. I'm almost 100% sure the ending is going to be exactly like the book, but you're going to cheapen it so much. How many episodes is this season? That's the first thing I need to know. How many? Because is it 8 or 10?
I think it's 10.
Okay. So the book is 8 connected stories. So I'm assuming you're going to insert this, then we're going to insert another chapter that has nothing to do with the book. You're going to try to pull what was the 5th chapter of the book and put that in here somewhere. And then you're going to try to connect everything together.
Bruh, so I'm looking on IMDb right now. The 10th episode is named Full Circle. And I see old girl Jamie Chung is in that episode. Now, IMDb could be wrong. Like, I've seen them, just add stuff in there. But the last episode, episode 10, is called Full Circle. And the characters in this one is in the 10th episode, supposedly.
So this is when Atticus supposedly dies, I'm assuming. Because, that's going to be the cliff thing right there that you're going to look forward to. Because she's already prophesized. I hate when stories prophesize stuff ahead of time. Like, oh, we know he's going to get to the Zack Snyder Death of Superman moment. Like, it's coming, but you just don't. You like, could you at least? I've given up on this show being good. Let's just hope these individual episodes are good. That's all I'm asking for. And please don't shoehorn me with Ant-Man science at the end of episodes to try to connect it to the rest of Lovecraft Country. No, just give me single episodes and let me enjoy them for what they could be.
It's so weird because now I'm like I'm thrown because initially up until this episode, I really didn't connect with Atticus like that. I mean, I understood where he was coming from, and I understood like him, from a military standpoint and from an abuse standpoint. I get it. I vibe with him on that. But him as a character, it just was an enigma to me. And like this was the first episode that he was actually very vulnerable. He was actually very, candid and real. Like the worst sides of him and the best sides of him were in this episode. And it's like, I like that. But then it's like, it took me this long to do that. and it's like, I'm still sitting there thinking they're going to bring Uncle George back. Like, I'm almost willing to bet.
They're gonna, don't worry about it.
They're going to bring this man back.
They're going to bring him back.
And it's like, how does that work when they ain't been enough, to give him anything? Like, I mean, they can't just, I don't know. I don't know.
They shouldn't have killed him in the first place. There was literally no need to kill him in the first place. They shouldn't have killed him in the first place. Then we wouldn't have to bring him back to life.
Maybe Courtney had some other stuff he had to do. Hey. He had to shoot some other stuff.
Then Dag Nabbit cast somebody else's Uncle George.
Because it's weak. It's like this dude. Like, the 5th episode I liked. This episode I liked. But as a whole, the season, I don't see this being something that's going to last the test of time like Watchmen. I don't see this as a good overarching season as a story. Like, there are good episodes here and there, but they have nothing to do with each other.
You've managed to separate the episodes from the show.
Yep.
Because if you say, I like the last 2 episodes, but then if I say, you do know, you got to connect this all back to the show, and you attempted to connect it to the show, you're going to be like, oh, these episodes are bad because they do horrible jobs of connecting the rest of the show. But if I look at it just as an episode, like a procedural, where it's just an episode and it moves on to the next, that's fine. But that's not what these episodes are. So I have to look at it in its totality to the rest of the series. And that's where I have my problem, is when I connect it to the rest of the series, I'm like, none of these are good. None of them. None of them. And that's the problem. That's the crux of their issue here, is they are giving some great performances. These individual episodes can stand out, but then when I put them back into what is Lovecraft Country, I look at it as it being weak. Like, this is episode 3 of the last season of Game of Thrones, where everybody was like, man, that episode was good. But when you put in totality the whole season sucked. So it's hard to really just take out one episode and say it's good. They're gonna have to knock it out of the park at least these last 4 episodes. That's it. Do something.
Look, hey y'all, this person pointing the gun, that's Lucas. And
yes, it is.
Lovecraft is the girl.
No. See, no. He's saying that the person pointing the gun is Sam, and that's me being forced to review Lovecraft Country. That's exactly what that is, Joe. But hey, we thank HBO for the access. We really do. I will sit here and complain. I will still review them. I will just sit here and complain. You know, hey.
Yeah. So hopefully that gave you guys some good input. Again, this episode is very gory. They go places that I was like, bruh, like I'm looking at like legit Japanese animation like levels of violence, and I was like, again, this is very gory, very sexual, very explicit, and also you have to make sure you're focusing in on the verbiage that's happening, not just what the interactions with Atticus and Jamie Chung's character, but specifically every other interaction, like who she's talking to, what she's talking about, when she's talking with her mom. Those are the great moments of this episode. I think that the mom's performance is a little flat a lot of the time, but the execution of the way they did their relationship makes all the sense in the world. And I think that last scene was really gimmicky. I don't understand it, like her just kind of staring in the eyes of a fox. But I do know from a cultural standpoint, the significance of a fox is very important. So I don't know if that's going to lean into something more later.
And the other important part, the first 15 to 20 minutes of the episode is subtitled. That is highly important for a lot of people. Yeah. It is subtitled. That is, it makes it more enjoyable for a person like me. I really do prefer things in subtitled than dubbed or have American voices with Asian or any other cultural type people. I don't like that. I do prefer it sub. So I think with it being sub, you get a better, deeper meaning of the characters and their words when you have to read and watch instead of just watching.
Yeah, and Jamie Chung, I think her performance was really good. I think she also played into dialect pretty well as well, because she as a American performer, she doesn't even sound anything like that. But some of you guys that aren't like Lucas and me, that don't like subtitles, this might be a little hard for you. So if you need to take your time, make sure you focus in on the subtitles, because they are very important.
They are.
I know it's time consuming. I know it can be boring, but you really need to kind of dive into what that is, because that's the meat and potatoes that makes this episode good for me. But yeah, it's one thing. I'm gonna ask you this question. And then we're gonna leave. How is Atticus not gonna know? Like, how many people this man unkilled that he didn't know that this the same chick that was like he was pointing the gun at? I mean, I assumed there's just so many. He alluded that he had done so much.
I'm assuming they're saying when you're in war, a face is a face. You're not looking at it at a certain point. You're just killing to kill. You're not looking at the face. And I think he was so numb. That's why when he came to her and he said, you don't understand how many bad things I've done, how many killings I've done. Like, he is confessing his heart to her because she sees something good in him. But the whole time, he didn't notice that he was about to kill her. She was one of the ones that was about to be killed by him. Again, that's what makes it good. Their connection is fine. This could have been like a Lovecraft prequel episode, and I'd have loved it. I'd have been championing it. I'd be like, yes, this is what you need. Instead, you shoehorn it in at the end with Ant-Man signs, and now I got to look forward to the next episode to see how you're going to shoehorn everything else in.
But then, if this girl exists, how can he has more? Never mind, I ain't gonna say that because I might get in trouble for saying that. Let's just say their chemistry works
way better than him and Letty's.
I'm not
way better.
I let him say it. I didn't
way better. Their relationship is believable. Him and Letty's relationship is not believable on camera. But these two, in their short scenes together, in their intimate scenes together, their chemistry is on 1,000. Like you as a director, man, you wish you can get two leads to have the type of chemistry they have in this episode. And I'm pretty sure they wish they had this type of chemistry in the rest of the season with the other person he's supposed to be the lead with, that he doesn't have this type of chemistry with.
Yeah, I am curious to see how audiences are gonna perceive this episode, because this is not a Lovecraft episode. Like, if people were thinking they were gonna get like the continuation from the last episode or like an understanding of anything, this is not gonna give them that. So I don't know how people are gonna look at this episode. Is this gonna be? Do you think this is gonna be a bust, or you think this people might like it?
Well, now we're gonna separate the groups of people here really quickly.
Break that down, yo.
Black people, you're not gonna like this episode. There's too many Asians in it for you. You thought this was a black show, and this episode is full of Asian people. You're not gonna like it. You're gonna be mad. You're gonna find some very hateful things to say because this episode is full of Asians. Now, people who follow the story of Lovecraft, you're probably gonna like it because it's giving you enough backstory that you're thinking you're getting something great out of finally getting a backstory of Atticus with this character and what happened to him in the war. So those are the two groups that you got to separate here. The people who love the show, this is going to be good for you all because the backstory is what you want. Black people, too many Asians for you. You're not going to like this episode. You didn't like the last episode because the black woman was turning white and you thought she wanted to be white and you hated that episode for that reason. So you're going to hate this one because it's a black show and they open up speaking Chinese for the first 15 minutes. You're gonna be so mad. I'm just waiting for the Twitter to explode Sunday night when this episode come out, and how many black people say, "Oh, they just gonna change up Lovecraft Country with all these." Like, you're gonna say some things that make no sense. Stick it out, though, people. If you do, again, if you like the show, stick this out. I hate this show, so I shouldn't have to stick it out. But if you like this show, stick it out. Like, I'm going to assume you're getting exactly what you need out of this show with this episode because the backstory part of it works for you.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm curious. We'll see. I think that one thing I did say to Lucas, I felt like she was kind of like a succubus because her whole point was to steal like people's souls, not just like their life force, but literally their souls. So I was like, I texted Lucas while I was watching. I was like, is she a succubus, dog? Like, I was like, what the heck is this? But I don't know. We'll go into more, next time.
I can't wait till we get to the end of the season because we're going to do an end of the season review no matter what. And I am going to go off and I'm going to go point by point what's in the book and I'm going to compare it to the show. And you're going to see, I'm going to make everybody out there understand my issues with this show at the end of the season. Everybody's going to issues with this show. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, y'all be ready for that. Lucas, thank you again. I appreciate you for coming back. Because again, you guys, I had to convince this man because he did not want to do it.
I was done. I was 8 weeks ago. I said, "Oh, I'm never watching another episode of Lovecraft."
He said it. He really did say it.
No reason. I said, "There's no reason to watch this show ever again. I'm fine." I didn't even want to finish out the season.
I've been trying to get him to look at anime with me. He's like, nah. Trying to get him to look at this show, Erased. This is really good. We might try to do that later. But he's like, man, I don't know, man. So I appreciate you, Lucas, for showing up. And we'll be back. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell button. Definitely go and check out Lucas's information in the description bar below. You can follow him on Twitter. And let us know what you think. Peace, guys.